Welcome, everybody. In the Do Now, we're trying to explain, how did we decide who's running for president? How did we get to the point where it's just Biden and Trump? Who decided that? Why aren't other people running? The way we decide this is something called primaries, primary elections. And so, primary elections are elections that are held by political parties to try and figure out who their one person is. Each party puts one person up for office. So, something like president, but also for senators, representatives, governors, all these different positions. Political parties will put one person up for each of them. So Republicans put up someone, Democrats put up someone, but so do the Green Party and Libertarian Party. Now, for smaller things like state Congress and sometimes governors, maybe there won't be a Libertarian or Green Party person. Maybe there just won't be any. There'll always be a Democrat and Republican. Those are the two most powerful ones. So each party decides who their one person's going to be. They do this through a process called the primary elections, where each state sort of does it at a different time. They do it over the course of a few months. It's not all in one day. Um, but each state will sort of pick people, and then ultimately the one person's picked by the end. This is usually done about 9 to 6 months before the election. The election is what we call the general election. That's the one that happens in November, where all people get to vote and they decide who their one person is for that office. So you're probably familiar with the general election, the one that's going to happen in November. The primaries are sort of this semifinal round. Right? So it's like in sports, you're down to your semifinals. Each party gets to decide their person, and then the general election is like the championship. Right? That's where the finals are actually decided. Like I said, they're held for lots of offices, not just president. Each state runs it themselves, and they spread it out, so it's not all in one day. The first few are spread out, and then there'll be some days which have a few at a time. Iowa and New Hampshire are always the first. Iowa does what we call a caucus, where you have to go to a meeting and you have to talk with people and you have to vote in person, and it's sort of like a meeting. New Hampshire is just a straight election. You just vote for who you want, you send in your ballot, that's it. Different ways of voting, but those states are always like the first two, and those are usually January, the year of the election. Elections aren't until November, so they're almost like a year in advance. And over the course of the next 6 months, all the different states have their primaries. There is a date in March called Super Tuesday, where a bunch of states do them all on the same day. Usually, Super Tuesday is the deciding day. One candidate will clearly run away with the most votes to be that party's candidate for the general election. There are different types of primaries. There's open versus closed. An open primary means anybody can vote in any party. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you get to help decide who the candidate is. In a closed primary, that means you have to be part of the party in order to vote for their candidate. So if you want to decide who's the Republican candidate, you have to be a Republican. Democrats don't get to decide for you. In an open, every person gets to decide for themselves which one they want to be in. So here's a map showing the schedule for this year. These are pretty much all done. A lot of them are in March. You can see Colorado is in March 5th. That was Super Tuesday. Each of these kind of have their own date, and usually by March, April, we know who the candidates are going to be. This map over here says which ones are open versus closed. So these purple ones, you can vote no matter what. The sort of pink ones are the ones where it's like mostly open, but there's some rules and restrictions on what you can do. So like Colorado, you can vote for either one, but you can't vote for both. So you have to pick if you're a Democrat or Republican and which one you want to vote for. The orange states, you have to be part of the party in order to vote for that primary. So we'll watch a video about primaries. You want to pause this video for a while? All right, so the 2024 primaries, there weren't that many candidates running. I don't know if you remember back in 2020, Trump was basically the only Republican, but there were lots of Democrats who were running. There are like 9 or 10 people trying to run. Um, Usually, if a president has won, they're usually assumed to run again. So back in 2016, there were a lot of candidates on all sides because Obama wasn't running again. Um, this election, there just weren't very many candidates. Everyone kind of knew it was going to be Trump and Biden again. Those were the two most powerful, and they're both eligible for another reelection. So they won easily, and they won early. They both won every single state for each of their parties, and it was decided very early that they were going to win the candidacy. And now those are the two major candidates for the election. What they're going to do next is something called a party convention. So they'll have a big party for each party. The Democrats and Republicans will hold a convention where they have lots of important people give important speeches. They'll decide, different issues that they want to push for, and it'll be just sort of a big celebration. There will be presidential debates. Typically, these are in September, October. But for some reason, Trump and Biden decided, since they've already basically won the candidates, that they're going to be doing theirs in the summer. They're going to do earlier debates than usual. They might do another one later, but as of right now, nothing's scheduled. But they'll do these big presidential debates. It'll be all over the news, and Trump and Biden will be on the stage, and they'll talk back and forth about different issues. And then the election is going to be in November 8th or something, November 5th. I forget what the date actually is. So right now, people are looking at polls and numbers to see who's ahead. If we open these polls, we got some different stats. Trump is currently leading Biden by very little, a little over 1%. So something where people are going to keep their eyes on is different polls and see what's going on. If the election were to be held today, Trump would likely win. He has a slight lead in some of those important states that it would people are predicting it would end like this. Now, there's still several months. Right? Trump could surge ahead even further. He could fall behind. Biden could surge ahead. A lot can happen. But people are predicting right now, if it had to happen today, that Trump might come out ahead. But this year's election might be a little bit different. There's questions about a third party candidate. Maybe there's a third person, a third option that might squeeze in and get some votes. His name is Robert Kennedy Jr. He is the nephew of John F. Kennedy, the president from the 60s. He's the son of Bobby Kennedy, who was an important politician in the 60s. He is offering some different options, and he is running for president. He's not on all the ballots in every state yet, but he's working for it. And it's very unlikely that he's going to win the election, but it's possible that he could influence one way or the other. That if he steals votes from Biden, he could help Trump win. If he steals votes from Trump, he could help Biden win. And he's kind of weirdly in the middle, and no one really knows whose votes he's going to take the most. So we'll watch a video on him. Our assignment today is to read and analyze about primaries, answer some questions, maybe do some makeup work. If you haven't done your Write Your Congressperson project, if that's not turned in, you should get that done and into me.